Welcome. Welcome to the Cultures of Resistance stage. Hello. Nice to see you. If you want to pop in the chat where you're joining us from, that'd be nice to know who we've got in the room, where you're joining us from. Great. So just a reminder that the festival is to enable connections, to have the conversations that we want to have, to allow us to collaborate. So if during this session you feel like there's people in here that you want to connect with, like feel free to use the chat function for that. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's speaker, which is Pat Maccabe. Pat, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's great. So Pat Maccabe is of the Dinner Nation. She was adopted into the Lakota spiritual way of life. She is a mother and a grandmother, an international speaker and teacher, a global ceremonialist, radical bridger, and a listener for radical proposals from spirit. She's done a lot of work in the UK over the years, particularly around the witch burnings and the trauma of that. And she's helped to start men's nations around healing the wounds of patriarchy. Her current work is around trauma healing as renaissance for human presence on the planet, the restoration of the sacred masculine, reimagining money to protect the sacred, and participating in Earth's movements through land back or land reunion, in which entrenched narratives and beliefs are being disrupted through return of land to indigenous sovereign relationship, which we absolutely need. Um, Today's session, Beyond Human Logic, Listening Together for Mother Earth Logic and Strategy. In the United States, there's a growing movement known as land back or land reunion, in which land is being returned to the stewardship of indigenous peoples. Pat proposes that this is not a human strategy. She proposes that this comes directly out of Mother Earth strategy. Brilliant, relational, embedded in Mother Earth economy of radical abundance and fearless generosity. Today we ask, how can we move ourselves to move with her? And with that, I'm going to hand over to Pat. Thank you, Pat. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks everybody for joining over here. I see David Baum here. I see somebody from Totnes. So that made me happy. I was just saying that I've had the pleasure of spending time in the Devon area when I was teaching at Schumacher. And so just love that part of the earth. But I want to say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. It's 10 a.m. here in northern New Mexico, by the banks of the Rio Grande. So it's a comfortable time of day for me. But just thank you for whatever time zone you're in for coming out this way. So as my bio said, I'm from Dene Nation, so I'll introduce myself in that way and say, She'e'ia, Tachi Nishli, Aro Ashi Ibashichi, Maedishkejne da Shenale, and Klaus Chi da Shiche, Quataus Dani Nishli. So we get our clans from our moms, and so I'm just introducing myself that way in case I have any relations here in the room that way. Who knows? And I was adopted into the Lakota spiritual way of life, um, and in that way I was given the name Weakpa Najimwi, which translates roughly to womaning, standing, shining. I feel like it's more of an energetic than a noun. Oh, and there's Stu. Hi, Stu. Good to see you. Yeah. So super glad to be here. Super glad that this convening is taking place. And so and just our subject matter of coming into some kind of movement together. And I often like to consider, I first read it from Joseph Chilton Pierce, and now there's another woman who's also quoted as saying something very similar. But what I read from Joseph Chilton Pierce was, this is a time, this could be a time of creating lifeboats of coherence. And so that's what I see happening in each of these little Zoom spaces here is we're creating lifeboats of coherence here and sharing these ideas. So I want to open with, I guess, just bringing us into a synchronization here a little bit. And I learned this from the whales recently. I had an opportunity to swim with the humpback whales when they were calving and just off the coast of Tonga, which sounds outlandish for me to say those words out loud, but it's true, and it was such a blessing, and so I just keep thinking about their way and our way and the way that they connected to me and to humanity. They kept saying, "Don't you remember your tail, your fabulous whale tail?" And they talked to me a lot about our sacrum, and they really couldn't understand, like, why do you abuse your sacrum the way you do? That's like your tail. That's like part of where your tail is, that hinge down there, and you guys just sit on it and compact it and sort of render it like so squashed that it's hardly able to do everything it's capable of doing. And so what they were saying is that our sacrum is actually quite a big portal for all kinds of information to come to us, and also for us to emit, and that it would help us tremendously to consider taking care of that area of our spine, and opening that back up. And right now, for me, the name of the game is doing everything I can to open up my fields of perception. So, the other thing that was brought to my attention during that time was how incredible the breath is. I mean, I learned that dropping into the water and next to a gigantic mama whale with her even bigger escort below me, and trying to keep my breathing together and not not choke on ocean water, from the exhilaration slash adrenaline rush of being there, but also just watching the whales and experimenting a little bit on land. So what I want to say here is, just notice, don't do anything to change it. Just let's notice where your breath is right now. Like, are you mouth breathing? Is it slow? Is it fast? Is it shallow? Is it deep? Is it going down into your belly or mostly resting right up here? So I would just have us notice here that our breath is holding us. Our breath is helping to hold what our thoughts are. So depending on the nature of my thoughts, my breath changes. Depending on what kind of emotions I'm in, my breath will change, and hold me. So I just want to take a moment to just honor your breath wherever your breath is. And then also just take a moment to notice that wherever we are, our breath is taking in from the life all around us. Yes, from whatever green medicine elders are around us, trees and flowers. Maybe it's springtime where you are. It's busting out in spring over here. I got some choke cherry blossoms right outside my window here. So that expression, that fragrance, somewhere it's in my breath, right? Animals frolicking in my breath too. And so I just want us to notice how all the time we're taking in from this whole circle of life all around us with every breath that we have, as our breath is holding us in our thoughts, our feelings, our level of activity, you know. And so I've really been working with this. I've been doing a lot of somatic healing work, trauma healing work, and the breath is so important. But before I impose, so there's a lot of breath works that help with regulating nervous system. But before I impose on my breath, I like to honor where it's how it's holding me right now and notice also the giveaway that I'm giving with every breath. So the humanity is contributing, sure, carbon dioxide, but also I feel like we're contributing with every breath what's happening in our heart, what's happening in our thinking. And that also is coming out through this very precious exchange, this very relational exchange, this breath. And and so just have us notice that first. And from that place, I humbly make the request for your on your breath here to maybe join together and just take a couple deep breaths together. And so we'll inhale and exhale and inhale and exhale and inhale one more time and exhale. Okay, and just let your breath flow as it will, as she wants to hold you, guide you, protect you, support you, taking in all this medicine from life around us. And so in this moment, I'd also like to dedicate this uh, two or more are gathered here. And I want to ask this Mother Earth to take a good look at each one of us who are sitting here, listening, being together. Take a good look and see who's here.
Know how
Notice,
you
what kind of heart.
how you do it, but I just let you know. And then he just walk away.
Uh-oh.
And 3 o'clock
Somebody
in the
needs to mute.
morning, in the night, they will come and get you. So I don't know. This is just pass you information. And that's make
Sorry,
me
Pat, I think it's coming from your computer.
scared.
Oh,
And if
computer.
I stay, I will be killed anyway. I'm a dead man anyway. So I break the ventilations and then I escape. I always watching the movie called Asylum. But one thing that I let my
Hey, Pat, it's still seeming to come through your computer. If you just open up the browsers that might be playing a video, um, and then sometimes there's a little volume thing and it will show you where it's coming from. And if you close that, and then we can unmute you again and continue. And for everyone else in the room, maybe we just stay with the breath. It seems to be solved now, Pat. We can continue. Thank you.
Oh, you're still here. Look at that.
We're all here. We're
Not
all,
showing up for me at all. Sorry about that. I have no idea what that was, but
it's totally okay. It happens.
both hold us.
It was a test.
Okay. So thank you for breathing with me. This is a huge part of my practice. And I also feel myself joining with a pace of Mother Earth that has not been normal for me, and that I want to make normal for myself. So there I am. But anyways, what I wanted to do was to make a dedication of our moment together here, ask this Mother Earth to take a good look at each one of us and notice that we've come together to put our minds, hearts, bodies, spirits together in the spirit of wanting to understand. And I feel that we want to understand how to be in harmony with life, how to be in harmony with each other, how to be in harmony with your own purpose, Mother Earth, Mama Earth, the things that you're here to accomplish in this solar system, or that you want to co-create and make possible. So I'm asking for you to be amongst us here. We make a place for you here, asking that you might show us that way to be omnibeneficent presence on this Mother Earth as five-fingered one, as human being, to be a benefit and blessing to all. As I witness all of my relatives, my elders of all the other life, the members of life, of the sacred hoop of life, and how they already know how to live their lives in a way that benefit not only their own kind up to 7 generations, but they also benefit all those members that are right around them. You know, we call them ecosystems, but they're living in such a way where they're benefiting the other members in their neighborhood, unto 7 generations there, and then that ecosystem supports the next and the next and the next and the next, until we can say that hummingbird, beaver, hedgehog, platypus, that the impeccable way in which they conduct their lives is actually a benefit and blessing to every other life member on this Mother Earth. And in that way, we're joined in a beautiful way. We're supported by such a profound model of how to go about being in this symphony of life. And so in that way, I ask that this serve for humanity to continue its inquiry that we have been in, deep in that inquiry at other times. In some ways, we feels like we've fallen out of that inquiry recently, but it's only been a short period of time. So I'm asking that you help us to find our way back into that inquiry for ourselves as individuals, if there is such a thing, but also just to answer for our own kind as we take our place, this sacred, beautiful gift of a seat on the sacred hoop of life as human beings. So in that way, I want to open. Yeah. Okay. To the business at hand. So maybe some of you were at the New Story Summit at Findhorn back in, when was that, 2015, 2014, somewhere in there. But I had this remarkable conversation out sitting on the dunes, taking a break from human chaos as we were trying to figure out how to come into unity. Anyway, my guides came to me and they said, your understanding of cause and effect is rudimentary. It's rudimentary. And they were frustrated with me, and they were impatient with me. And they're usually, they're by and large very, very kind, very, very compassionate, with me. But in this moment, they were, I don't know, they were expressing this frustration. And so I said, I believe you. I believe that my understanding of cause and effect is rudimentary. So I'm inquiring from you, what else do you want me to know about cause and effect? What else can I participate in terms of cause and effect? I'm open. I'm willing. I'm willing to learn what you want to show me, right? And and so, they kind of grumbled back into less agitated and said, okay, well, for instance, Ms. Maccabe, if all times are happening at the same time, what is possible? If all times are happening at the same time, what is possible? Well, that pretty much just blew up my whole system. I mean, I guess I considered that to some degree, and very, very peripherally, not really holding it as anything I could actually work with or participate in. But that was the first, for instance, they gave me. And so and ever since then, they've been working with me around time and human concept of time, earth concept of time, how earth concept of time works differently than other places in the cosmos and in other dimensions. And so there's all different kinds of cause and effect at play. And the other thing they said, and I'll go ahead and name it here, I don't know how much we'll get into it today, but during that same period while I was at Findhorn, they also said, because here we are trying to come up with a new story that's better than the story we're operating out of. And they said, look, rather than try to tell a new story from this point forward, you would be better off retelling the old story. And if you go back and retell the old story, you will automatically change the trajectory into the future. So there we are with this time business again. There we are with a very different kind of logic. So I've thought about that, and I don't really know why they said that, but here's how it looks to me, and that is that and I guess even Einstein said you can't create a solution from the same place where the problem was created. You kind of have to step out of that pool of where the problem is forming and growing and reinforcing itself in order to be able to come up with a solution, right? And so I don't think we know enough at this moment to really say we're going to we have the capacity to tell an entirely new story going forward. I think we're too embedded in too many old stories. But, and maybe you know this from your own personal life, we got 20/20 hindsight, right? We can see where things went awry back there sometimes. And we can say, man, if I only had it to do over again, I would have done this. I would have said that. I wouldn't have, all these different things maybe. But in any case, we can see a little more clearly, oh, that choice was made and this is where it led. So now I'm going to make a different choice because I don't want to replay that same thing. Or maybe that worked fantastically. So I'm going to use that and I'm going to move forward. So either way, right? So I just wanted to start with sort of this origin of logic beyond what I'll call human logic. So in a way, that title is a little off base because because I feel like there's input coming in that I wouldn't necessarily call from a human source. It's coming from Earth. In my instance, I also acknowledge that I believe it's coming from spirit helpers. It's coming from other life forms who know so much more about keeping harmony on this planet than human beings do at this moment, right? And so I'm just saying that human beings have a capacity to perceive these other logics, but I don't know that we're generating them. So I want you to just feel that in your body for 1 second here. What kind of logics are working that aren't human logics? I mean, it's going on all around us, right? We've got planetary movements, we've got comets zooming across, we've got we've got tides, we've got weather, we've got there's all kinds of different logics happening out there that we're not generating. So at one time in our history, that would have been kind of a silly thing for us to have to pause and feel and think about. I feel like we had a much bigger awareness of when we were participating in these cause and effects, when we were causing the effects, and when we were doing that in concert, and when other things were doing that. But this anthropocentricity, where human beings feel like we're the thing making everything happen. This is a more recent perspective on ourselves, I would say. So, so what I wanted to get into here a little bit was, I'm starting to work on from an equation here, and this equation says I'm looking for unlikely allies, and maybe those of us sitting here, I don't know, maybe we're preaching to the choir in some ways, which I don't find a waste of time at all. I think we need it. We really need that. We really need to support each other, and we have to speak the truth back to each other. My guides also scolded me one time, and they said, "You are responsible for repeating the truth to yourself frequently, because there's so much out there competing with for your attention. Certainly advertising is totally aware of this, right? And so, but politics is also aware of this. Belief systems are self-perpetuating also. So all of that is being repeated. So if we're going to begin to depart out of that and begin to access other logics, I feel like we do have to be in echo chambers at different times to keep repeating truth, keep repeating our humanity, keep reporting on our inquiries. Also, the other kinds of cause and effects that are somehow finding their way into our ironclad intellectual institutions and such. I think that's really important. But anyway, so what I was going to say is, so I'm looking for unlikely allies who are enacting radical bridging, listening for outrageous proposals from spirit. So let me say that again. Unlikely allies enacting radical bridging, listening for outrageous proposals from spirit. So, I mentioned that I had the profound honor of being adopted into the Lakota spiritual way of life. And I'm going to say, and I've been in that practice for over 30 years, which they say makes me a baby in that way. But what I feel like the way I hold that is that it's a vision in culture. That we don't live our lives only, again, based on what the human being feels and thinks and perceives. So there are many different junctures, crossroads that we come to where we say, I need to go and fast and pray. And there's a word that we have called hamblecha, and we say, I'm going to go cry for a vision. And so what that means is is my relatives, and this is what's so beautiful, my relatives, when I declare this, will help me get ready. They'll put me in a purification sweat lodge, and then they take me out onto the land. We say we go out on the hill. So sometimes we're going out on a mountain hillside, not on the top, but just on the side, and fast and pray. And so if I say I'm going out for 4 days, I stay out there. I don't come back in. I just stay there, and I cry and I listen and I pray, and I'm surrounded by tobacco offerings, and things come to meet me. Animals come to meet me. I've had stars come to meet me. I've had spirits come to meet me in that place. But the point for me there is that I'm inquiring, like, if this, Thich Nhat Hanh calls this Mother Earth interbeing. So we are so interrelated, so interconnected, so interdependent that really we're a single organism. All these different life forms, flying ones, swimming ones, creepy crawling ones, four-legged ones, plant nation, water, stone, mountain. We're all actually a single organism. Whatever one member of that sacred hoop of life, and I always have a little image here, whatever one member on that sacred hoop of life does, it affects every other member. How incredible is that to be joined? So here's the spiritual endeavor for me, is that we've been given the gift of free will on this Mother Earth, and anything that any one of us does affects all the rest of that sacred hoop, all the life. Not only the humans, okay, but all the life. So I feel like our primary task is trying to understand where and how am I going to direct my will, this free will that I've been given. Now, I feel like, sometimes people say, well, human beings are sort of at the pinnacle of things because they get to choose and they have consciousness and they have all these different characteristics we want to give. But sometimes I wonder, I'm pointing this way because this is where the trees and the birds and everybody is for me outside this window here. Sometimes I wonder if all of those different life forms have already been through all of their trial and error that they need to, and now they have come to the conclusion that the best way to be a presence here on this Mother Earth is to become omnibeneficent. It's a word I used in the opening, and it's a word I've coined, to be a benefit and blessing to all. Because if I am enacting my life, my will, my consent, and if I'm contributing to a cause and effect that is always looking to be a benefit and blessing, then everything around me gets to thrive. So I feel that human beings have been deep in that inquiry at different times. And, I feel like my people are Dene people, Lakota people, all included in there, have been deep in that science. So I'm going to depart here for just a moment and say, this is a much abbreviated version, but I want to make sure that you can really hear me when I'm saying these things. And that is, if sustainability is the highest and most sought after technology on the planet, who should we be talking to? We should be talking to those peoples who've known how to live in one place over an extended period of time, 1,000 years, 5,000 years, 10,000 years, 20,000 years or more in place, in situ, in relative health, harmony, and happiness. These are the premier scientists of sustainability, okay? And we tend to call them indigenous because that word indigenous means that they are of place. That's the definition, right? Now, this is the point of why I'm saying this. It's not to set myself apart from anybody else. But what I want to say is, let's notice what are the hallmarks of indigenous peoples. There are many, but here's how I'm going to frame it. So they are people of song. They are people of dance. They are people of ceremony. They are people who vision. They have conversation with things that Western scientists say we can't really have conversations with. And this is anywhere you are on the earth where we find these peoples. So what I'm saying is that they are calling upon a very broad spectrum of ways of knowing. The song is a way of knowing. The dance is a way of knowing. Fasting and praying and crying for a vision is a way of knowing. So they're not just looking to themselves or even just human beings. They're reaching out to this larger community of life, to cosmos, and I'm going to say also to a spiritual realm. And it's by doing that, I believe, that that's what gives them this incredible capacity to have actual sustainability. It turns out that you can't actually have the relationship necessary to cause a place to thrive so that it can cause you to thrive, so that you can cause the place to thrive, so that the place can cause you to thrive. It doesn't seem like you're actually able to do that as a human being using one modality of knowing, which is intellect only. So I'm saying this to invite us because this isn't just true of someone who looks like me and wears fabulous jewelry. This is the medicine of my place. I say, culture isn't. I propose culture isn't a human construct. Culture is the Mother Earth expressing herself as human being in any given place. So this is why when we meet these people who have this long history of causing place to thrive and place causing them to thrive, they're wearing unusual things, at least by modern world standards. So for us, it's all about the turquoise and silver. Here's some other stones here. Here's some more, right? Because this is what the Mother Earth gave in song, dance, prayer, vision, and told us something about how this can help a human being participate in different kinds of cause and effect. This can keep a human being in right mind, right heart, right body, right spirit. Right? And so if I go to some other place, they're wearing other things. They're wearing other colors, they're wearing fabrics, they're wearing shells, they're wearing stones, they're wearing different things because they're tuned into that place at that level. So this is Mother Earth expressing herself as human being in any given place. Imagine having that level of relationship with this Mother Earth, right? So I'm saying that because when I talk about something outside of human logic, I don't want you to make me into some kind of caricature of a human being who has this really interesting folkloric, what do they call it in science, anecdotal knowledge. This is the real business, okay? I'm talking about here. This is how human beings do it. When they're serious about sustainability, they open up their perception beyond intellect, beyond other human beings. That's how it's been done. So going back to our equation, unlikely allies enacting radical bridging, listening for outrageous proposals from spirit. So in my piece there that I wrote about this session, I was talking about land return. And so this is an example that I'm embedded in right now. And it's extraordinary. So one, who would have ever thought that we would get to witness land being voluntarily, ceremonially returned to indigenous people after the brutality of colonization, after the doctrine of discovery and the papal bulls declared any lands that you come upon that don't have any human beings of the one true faith, you may call those, we call those lands terra nullius, empty and void lands. And you may take those lands and you may take those peoples that are there who are subhuman. There was some kind of term like humanus animalis. They're human animals. They're more animal than human. And you may take those ones into perpetual slavery. Whew. That was a ferocious spell cast upon humanity by empire and church. And I feel like we're also in the middle of some other ferocious spells going on. But notice, here we are. So now land is being returned to indigenous peoples. And so I'm stewarding land at the base of one of our four sacred mountains. And so I'm going to speak a little bit to that, which is to say, there were wealth holders. So I became a part of a community. And our primary reason for being in community was so that we could reimagine money and protect the sacred. And one of our elders, I was considered an elder also, but I consider Orland Bishop an elder to me. One of our elders was saying, we're examining our unconscious agreements with money. And so through that process, there were people who came forward when this opportunity came up for us to be able to hold land. And I don't even have words for what that means anymore, because it's not the usual meaning of holding land, but I'll get to that in a second. But holding land at the base of our mountain so that we could have ceremonial access and make pilgrimage to this very holy site for us. And so there were people involved in this community who said, look, I know that my family's wealth came from oil, timber, and land theft. And I've been doing ceremonial reparation work, healing work in the spiritual realms. And now I'm ready to bring it onto earth in material form. And so we are willing to help purchase this land to make this possible for Dene people.
Birth.
So imagine, oh, here we go again. Oh, maybe that was David. Okay. Um, so this is a new movement, right? This is a very new movement. And so I'm going to give one other example here. So I've been working with an organization called Land Justice Futures. And if you go to Land Justice Futures website, there is, I think, one tab called something like Mother House. And in it, there is a 6-part tutorial study. Each one is an hour long about the Christian doctrine of discovery, and it's hosted and held primarily by indigenous women. So it's a really beautiful way to go into that a little bit further. But working with Land Justice Futures, we're working with nuns, with sisters, Catholic sisters, and in the United States, the median age for nuns is 84. So they're kind of on their way out. And so we've been talking with them about the possibility of land returned to indigenous people and Black farmers. And so, you know, part of the process that Land Justice Futures goes through, and that 6-part course is part of this, is they go through like a 3-year process with these different communities of nuns, which is informing them about real life, actual history that most people don't ever get to hear, and that certainly they haven't been told. And so they're coming around to understand their role in history, their role with indigenous peoples, with land, et cetera. And, you know, Catholic Church, largest landholder on the planet, by the way. And so they're deciding they want to change their legacy. They don't want their legacy to be only what happened in the boarding schools where indigenous children were kidnapped and taken and forced into these assimilation situations that ended up oftentimes being extraordinary and excruciatingly abusive. So we had our first land return by a Catholic sister nun community last November for the northern, that was returned to the northern Chippewa. It was a 4-hour drive north of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. I mean, as someone whose grandparents and parents were taken into Dutch Christian Reformed missionary residential boarding schools, this is big business. I mean, I went to the ceremony where they signed the deed over, and I got to say, we were all kind of walking around in a daze because we were like, we don't even know what this, there's no place to file this in my body. My epigenetics know nothing about such a reparation, such a thing, but just feeling it rearranging. And this was true on the nuns, for the nuns and for the tribal peoples. And yeah, it was just so powerful. So what I want to say, I'm also part of 2 different communities. One had like 27 different land reunions and that were being talked about and represented in this gathering. And then I've been in a year-long cohort of 4 women-led land reunions. And so here's what's happening. You know, so I'm speaking from a somewhat broad database here, but I'm going to say, I don't think this is us doing this. I think this is Mother Earth's strategy. And I say it like this. I say, you know, I think, you know, she knew she could count on indigenous people because she knew that if it was proposed to indigenous peoples pretty much anywhere on this planet, hey, how would you feel about having that land returned back to you that you occupied and had this profound relationship on for most of your generations in recent memory? You know, what are we going to say? We're going to say, yes, yes, please. Thank you. Yes. So she could count on us for that. But here's the interesting part. What's happening as land is being returned to indigenous peoples is we're having to, one of the biggest questions is who's going to hold this? Who's going to hold this deed and this title? Because we're moving from one paradigm to another. The point of us owning this land is really so that we get to enact sovereign relationship with our place again. We're not holding it as asset. We're not holding it as growing our portfolio. We're holding it as a place to be able to remake relationship. So what I'm finding in these processes is, and I'll also say when we were talking about, how should this land be held? I went to my daughter. Some of you might know my daughter, Lila June Johnston, Dr. Lila June Johnston. And she said, why should the IRS, which is our tax revenue government entity, right? Why should the IRS be telling a matriarch what kind of governance system she's supposed to have in this unprecedented, uncharted territory moment of land return? And why indeed? Why should that be the structure that says you have to have X board members and do this, minutes, meetings, all this stuff, right? So what's happening from my perspective is that ownership is changing, real estate is changing, those definitions are changing, asset is changing, return on investment is being redefined. The legals around this are starting to shift. So these are all deeply embedded human system narratives. These are sacrosanct, right? But all of a sudden, once we cross this line, they begin to start wiggling and morphing, and we have to ask ourselves a lot of questions about them. And so I'm just like, wow, Mother Earth, you are really something. You are breaking up old, deeply held tenets and narratives that human beings hold in the most beautiful relational way. She's doing it relationally. Man, so powerful, so powerful. And it's kind of revealing. It's sort of like the emperor has no clothes with some of these structures, right? Like what do these even mean anymore? And even for myself, I don't, I'm not quite sure what it means to hold this place. So the mountain is informing me. The mountain is telling me this. So I want to be able to open this up for some of you to ask some things, but I'm going to say one more thing here. And that is that I'm working out of this story. So by indigenous history count and such, we say that we have lost worlds before. So you may have heard different cultures talk about this being the fifth world or the sixth world. So we've been through worlds. We've lost worlds. I'll say that the story that I'm looking at is what my clan grandfather told me about when we lost the world to the Great Flood. And by the way, he says we know why we lost that world. And this is sort of not good news, because he says the reason we lost that world is because men and women believed they could live without each other. So as I'm watching what's taking place in this moment right now, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to hold tight to ourselves, to our love, to so much in order for us not to end up in that same place again. So anyway, I'm going to tell this story about what he said happened when the Great Flood was coming. So Dragonfly came to the people, and Dragonfly told the people, if you were to climb into the hollow reed, then you might be able to withstand what's coming. And so I point out, first, there were people who had ways of knowing such that they could hear, see, understand, and receive this information from Dragonfly. Let's notice that. 2, they believed Dragonfly. 3, they believed it so much they acted on this. So the story is that these human beings got into the hollow reed. They must have been bigger hollow reeds than we have right now. But anyway, they get into the hollow reed, the floodwaters rise and subside, and then these human beings emerge out of the hollow reed. And these are the next human beings who begin the next world. And so I've been really dwelling on that. And I've been saying, now, what did these human beings have to draw on for that incredible moment? Because I do feel like we're in a transition of worlds here. And so I say, sure, their food, clothing, and shelter had to begin again. So there was all of that. But I think, what I want to know is what inside of themselves were they drawing on when they began the next world? And so right now, my question for myself is, how can my life serve those who emerge out of the hollow reed? I don't know that I'm going to be one of them, but there's something that I can do to help them be in a better position when they emerge. And the thing that I'm coming to, the conclusion that I'm coming to, is I want them to have witnessed radical forgivenesses. I want them to have witnessed radical reparations. I want them to have witnessed radical generosity. I want them to carry that. And if I were to be that one person emerging out of that hollow reed, I have experienced that with some of this land reunion. To be present when the nuns gave that land back to the Northern Chippewa is etched in my body now. It's a new part of human DNA, I'm going to say. Right? So I can carry that forward. I know we're capable, and that's possible for us. So before we take that Q&A, I'm just going to ask you to just, again, notice the breath, notice the body, and let's take a couple breaths together, pose on our breath here, and say thank you to our breath. But let's go ahead and inhale and exhale, and inhale, long exhale. All right. I know we had a person with their hand up, or I don't know if our hosts here have seen any questions or comments that we should open up for.
Kitty had her hand up. Kitty, would you like to come forward?
Hi, Kitty.
Hi, Pat. It's so wonderful to see you again. You probably don't remember me, but I met you once in London with Claudia Van Zoyden.
That's right. Hi, Kitty. Yes.
I think maybe you'd even just come from Findhorn at that point. I don't know. It was quite a long time ago. But it was...
Yeah, we were having a meal on Portobello Road, I think.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, I did mention to Claudia about today as well. But it is fantastic to hear your story and to hear the visions and to inspire and encourage us at this time of huge, huge change. And I wanted to ask you really about whether you think that the kind of allies we are looking for include those trillions of bacteria and viruses that live in our bodies, of which we take no notice, but continue to hold us up and somehow keep us going.
I say, why not? Yeah. And more is being shown to us about, that's why I say, are we individuals? Hard to say, really. There's so much interplay that supports us to be this organism that can hop on a Zoom call and listen here, right? But I think the way that I'll approach answering that is I wake up in the morning and lately, and I've been asking, show me how good it can get. Show me how good it can get. I want to see how good it can get. I want to feel how good it can get. I want to live how good it can get. I want to be how good it can get. Show me. And so part of what I say is I'm always in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, and good things flow to me. And I'm showered with abundance in every way. And so show me how good it can get. So in this case, I would add to that, and let all that which can be an ally to me moving into human omnibeneficence. I welcome you. Show me how we can be in right relations, and let us travel together. Help me to travel in a way that serves 7 generations, in this. We're not only interconnected as organism or biologically exchanging breath and such, but we're in time too, is I feel like what the holy people were saying to me. So I guess that's how I would respond a little bit to what you're bringing here, Katie. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you one other thing. Do you think that that we should be doing a lot of shaking our sacrum
I
instead of sitting on
I
it.
think getting on all fours and learning how to wag that tail. Remember our fabulous whale tail. Getting some space in there was basically what they were saying, and know and visualize breathing through that area. That there's a lot that can be perceived there that maybe can't be perceived in other ways. So yeah, thanks, Kitty.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna call on. I guess it's Boraj. Where'd you go? You disappeared.
Well, I'm there.
Oh, there you are.
Thank you, Pat. I think this is what you're speaking to already. My partner and I recently came into relationship with a 9.5 acres of land. So according to UK law, we own it and own, and that's not how I feel about it. And since we've been in relationship, I've been in conversation, been in ceremony with her, changing how I relate with her. So my question to you is there anything else you'd like to say in terms of how I might go about that? And maybe this isn't just me with these 9.5 acres, but all of us with our back gardens, any little patch of land that we're in relationship with.
Thank you. So listening to the mountain, listen. That's the primary thing. And part of the way that I feel like the human being gets to interact and begin to expand for those of us who've been indoctrinated into the way of like intellect all the time, which is pretty much most of us, it seems like. But the way from that I feel like I have come to open up broader and broader and be able to listen and hear is by going out at that moment where that holy star comes above the horizon, our sun, and making an offering and inquiring. You know, in my part of the world, we offer tobacco, Lakota way, or cornmeal in Dene way, or corn pollen. I know some of the people I worked with when I was teaching becoming indigenous at Schumacher College decided that maybe oats were the original offering over there, so they were offering oats. Um, but to make that offering and to inquire, I'm listening. I want to hear from this land. I want to hear from all the life here. I want to be in partnership. I want to be a radical ally. I try to just be as real as I can. And I'm not sure anybody's listening, but this woman on Zoom said maybe I should try this. Like be real about it, but go out and make that offering and listen. And I ask, speak to me in a way that my conscious mind can understand. Show me the signs. And so right now the mountain is really talking to me about it's herself, and there's actually an intermediary that's talking to me about the mountain. But one of the things the mountain is saying that it would be good for me to say here is that, okay, so Dene people have had this relationship with this mountain for, I don't know, we'll say time immemorial. But the mountain doesn't talk about Dene people. The mountain talks about human beings. Interesting, right? So here's my geopolitical justice system. And so this is a part of listening for the outrageous proposal from spirit, is I'm learning how not to close in what I think the outcome is supposed to be here. The Mother Earth is trying to bust a move here. This mountain is trying to bust a move here. This holy star is talking to Earth through this mountain. They're all trying to do something here. And I'm gonna cut us short if I try to determine what outcome is supposed to happen here. Justice for Dene people is too small. There's so much more trying to happen here for human beings. But what the mountain is saying is, yes, Dene people have these elaborate ceremonies. Bring those if you got them. But even if you don't, what a human being feels when they approach a mountain: exhilaration, awe, upliftment. Know that you as human being can participate in the conversation that takes place between Earth and cosmos through mountains, and dedicate that feeling to that conversation. I want this conversation to take place. We want to receive what Star Nation has for Earth in this moment. We need all the help we can get. I dedicate my awe, exhilaration, upliftment to be a part of that medicine of this conversation that's taking place. I claim that as human being, that capacity. So, expressing your awe, the way your heart is moved by beauty with whatever part of the land you're on. We were talking before we got on, opened up the Zoom room, and someone was talking about being in the wooded areas, I believe in Wales, and what that does for them. So to dedicate that back to the life, back to the land, back to the earth, and keep inquiring and saying, I'm in, tell me, talk to me. So that would be my greatest recommendation that I'm also engaged in this moment. So I don't know if we have time for one more question. Do we? Don't I don't know what time it is. Probably we're right at time.
We are at time, Pat. There is one question in the room, and there's also a question in the chat. It's completely up to you whether we take those now or whether
I'm good to take those two questions and say thank you to those who have to run on for next session or wherever they're going. But thank you so much for stopping in here. And we'll go ahead and proceed with these two questions. And
thank you.
So, I guess Sky, let's hear from you. You're muted still. Sorry. There you go.
I have in the position of land having come to me, and I'm in the process of giving that to a local group with something called Transition Town, which has been a widespread sort of movement. So I was returning it to the local population, and also it's going to be looked after. And this is partly knowing that, my life will come to an end in the foreseeable future. And so it's really, inspiring to hear all your perspective and so on, and the practices that I have. Every day, well, most days I have a practice that salutes the land, and it's actually that was inspired from some of the Native American traditions. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Sky. I am familiar with that Transition Town movement in Totnes area, maybe Ashburton as well, or somewhere around in there. Yeah, but thank you for that, and would be so curious to know a little more about how that's going. Maybe we'll connect with your group again at some point. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Annabelle, I don't know what the question was in the comments. That's the other question we said we would get to.
Well, the other question we have in the comments is from Paul Daniel. He asks, what do you think can happen with reservations, in brackets sovereignty, natural resources, and general Native American rights, now that Trump is in power and is transforming the USA into a fascist country where only ideological racism, power, and money matters?
To him, that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really crucial addendum there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was thinking about that when I was coming onto this call, and I was like, I don't know, when have I got to be so dang happy about? But I am. I'm like, I've been really ecstatic lately. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that I come from a people that, I'm a survivor of attempted genocide. So this is not really all that new for me and my people to feel this level of everything we're witnessing. It's like, for us, this has been ongoing for generations now. So I have a skill set for this level of, atrocity, honestly. I personally would rather be a human being that didn't have that skill set, but apparently I do have it. So I don't know. I was trying to figure it out on the call because I was like, someone's going to ask, what do you think we should do? How should we be feeling? And I'm like, I don't know. But for myself, I'm going to get to the question, but I want to say this. I've been praying for at least a decade, maybe not quite that long, and I've been asking, show me how to participate fully in the very highest possibility for life and light and love. So this has been a part of my offering prayer. And so I feel like the things that come into my field, the things that are arriving, that's what's for me to do. So I'm on it. I'm all in and I'm on the job with those things, but I'm not trying to take in the entire scope of geopolitics globally. I'm not trying to take in every aspect of economics. I'm not trying to take in every aspect of gender warfare. Um, Other people are going to take that part on. Other people are going to take this part on. I'm taking on the parts that I know have come in for me and that I have the skill set to be with and address. So that's just something that I do for my own well-being, right? But this question, so it's interesting that you bring up the reservations. So part of the way that I came to, I wasn't actually, I agreed with land return to indigenous peoples, or it was called land back. We're calling it land reunion at this point, the people that I'm involved with. But I wasn't actually actively looking for it. But our young people went to our tribal government. So this is something that maybe not everybody understands in terms of our setup, our political setup. But tribal governments were established with these sovereign nations. I use air quotes because our lands are held in trust by the government because we're not capable of managing our own lands. But tribal governments were established for all these sovereign nations, these federally recognized indigenous tribes, and they were set up to negotiate, to create ways of negotiating with these tribes in all different ways. So the treaties, which have largely been ignored, but nowadays it's a lot about having to negotiate with tribal government entities, tribal enterprises. My own tribe has a separate energy corporation. Many tribes now have that. So the young people went to our tribal president. This was not the current administration, but the previous one, and said, "We don't trust you anymore. You're selling us out to extraction. We're no longer going to call you our leaders or our elders," which was a very radical thing to say, because if you keep selling us out to extraction, you're going to make our territory so toxic that we can't live here anymore, and then we will cease to be Dene. We can't just pick up and be Dene somewhere else. We are Dene between the four sacred mountains. That's also something modern world sometimes has a hard time understanding. There's no relocating that way. I mean, people survive in relocation, but it's not quite the same thing, right? And so they said, instead, we're going to go and inquire of the original teachers and the original elders, which are the four sacred mountains, and ask them, how do we continue on being Dene? So most of the land backs that I'm involved with, land returns, land reunions, are outside of tribal government. So this is happening on traditionally held territories that probably no longer are considered to be part of the reservations or within the boundaries of a nation's reservation, that are held by private landowners or sometimes national parks or other entities. And those are being returned to tribal members, but not going through the tribal government. And what I feel like this is doing for us, so we have suffered an enormous amount of some of the most depraved human behavior currently known on the planet, right? And so we have a lot to recover from. And so what's taking place on the reservations is at least on my reservation, is really, really tough stuff. It's really, really hard life, hard way. Tribal governments are getting rich. There's a lot of money around. It's not going back onto the reservation. It's not going to the people necessarily. So that's its own thing. And so partly, sometimes I wonder about these land reunions being off reservation outside of those entities is our way of being able to begin again and to decide, what do we want to bring in from the old ways? How do we go about that? I know the mountain is saying, we want this place for you, Dene people, to be able to to reconsider what your ceremony really is and how it needs to be held. Because in this place that you're holding, they're talking to me, for instance, this is not a place to make profit on ceremony. The women are to be respected here. So the mountain is calling for certain things. And so I feel like it's a chance for us to reestablish some things that were interrupted. And I give thanks to our young people for seeing and calling it out and opening up this possibility. So that's a super long answer to that one question, but there you go.
Thank you so much, Pat. We do have 2 more hands up, but I think that we should wrap up now. How does that suit you? I mean, it's completely up to you. I'm open, I think.
Let's see. Well, time-wise, I'm okay. All right, let's take these 2 other hands. I mean, we're not interfering with anybody else, right? By doing this, we got our own little.
I think everyone that's in the room wants to be in the room. It's very.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So we'll take these other 2, and then I got some final words of closing.
Beautiful.
Okay. So
Thank you.
Oh, Ida's session starts in 5 minutes. Okay, we don't want to impinge on that, so we'll see if we can burn through these questions.
Tēnā koe e te rangitera, Pat. Mai I Aotearoa, New Zealand. I just a beautiful kōrero from you, and I just wanted to celebrate a couple of things you said, because there's so many parallels between our journeys, and even though there are many differences in customs, and also to share a story, because you mentioned wanting the future to have seen radical forgiveness, radical generosity. And I just wanted to share a little story about, we have a Treaty of Waitangi tribunal here in New Zealand, and I had this story from one of our karaua who used to be on the tribunal about a hearing that was done in the 1980s or 90s, I think. And this particular area, there was a farming family that had been there for 3 generations on the land that had been taken. And in the tribunal process, the iwi, all the people got to go and talk about and give evidence about their connection to the whenua and the different parts of the whenua and the things they used to do on the whenua. And the farmer sat there and listened to it all. And at the end of that process, the farmer got up and metaphorically said, look, I have the title to this land in my hands. And he laid it down on the floor and said, I'm giving it back. And one of the karaua from the tribe picked up this metaphorical title, and he carried it around the whare, showing it to all of the kaumata, all of the elders there, and said, look, your land, this is your land coming back. He went around, and then he gave it back to the farmer out of respect for the farmer's generosity. And they worked out a relationship where the local tribe had access to the land, and they were also conferred with if the farmer wanted to change anything he was doing. So it became a relationship rather than a private property fenced off area. So I thought that was a beautiful story, and that's what happens when people listen, like you say. And I also celebrate you for resisting having the other governance structures imposed on you, because we're dealing with the issues of having them imposed on us, over the decades, do resist that as much as you can. Anyway, beautiful kōrero from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I love that story. And yeah, the more we get, the deeper we get into this, the more that title part seems like it's not the way, right? The ownership isn't the thing. It's the relationship. And will also say that I was really worried about having this relationship with my water officials because they were talking about wanting to put measuring devices on this very precious, sweet little spring that's on the land. And I said, that's like asking a grandma what her measurements are. No, you can't do that. And and so, but anyway, they came out, and I received them as we would another, tribally, and we fed them. I fanned them off. We went and made offerings at the water, and now they're going to be our allies. I called them water protectors. I prayed with them in our ceremony house and called them water protectors. And now that's how they're seeing themselves, and they're all in with us out there at the mountain. And so, just transforming. So yeah, thank you so much, Krisha. And let's move on to Maya here. Hi, Maya.
Hi, Pat. Thank you so much for taking me in this moment. I've really been really touched listening to you and being in the space with you. And so this is a bit of a personal question. I'm going into my 4th year of Vision Quest in 3 weeks, and I've been sitting with integrity and with sitting in the north, and just I've had a difficult year, and somehow just wanting to use this opportunity of having you in front of me, if you have any words of wisdom to take me into a closer place with integrity and with what it means to walk in integrity in this life, walk in beauty in a good way.
Wow, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for doing that for yourself, but also for the people, for others. What the elders always said before, after, during the ceremonies is they say, we do this so the people can live. We want to live. Maybe in your little Zoom room, wherever you are, like maybe we can say it together. We want to live.
We want to live.
We want to live. We're doing this so the people can live. We want to live with all of our relations in a good way. And so that's why we're doing these ceremonies. That's why your community is supporting you in this endeavor. And so when we send somebody out who's being called to pray in that way, the way I was told is that at that moment you're giving your life up to Creator, and Creator decides if you get to come back and join the community or not. And so it's a very serious commitment. And also, you don't go out there unless you intend to act upon what you're given while you're out there. And this is, I think I probably have gone out over 20 years in a row, maybe 25 years in a row. And I haven't been lately though. So I'm thinking it's time for me to go. And it's such an incredibly vulnerable thing to do, place to open yourself up to as human being, especially with all the illusions and delusions that we've been given about how independent we are and who we are and all these things. But to become that vulnerable and receive from this Mother Earth, and to let her hold you. And in that way we say the women are the backbone of the family, and the women are the backbone of the community. So for me, I found that was just a place to really receive from this Mother Earth, to be able to be that. I also feel like, as the female of our kind, as Holy Earth surface walker, life bringer, life bearer, I say I stand with the full authority of the Mother Earth behind me, and it's my place to always ask, are we placing life at the center? And it's also my place to say, if we are not, then let us begin again. So for me, that time on the earth is also helping me feel that authority as life bringer, and also to be the faith keeper of the people. So I say that even if we don't birth children, we've been given this mother heart, and the mother heart, I have 5 kids. So the mother heart always holds out a path of hope and light for every one of her children. And in our tribal communities, it's every child in the community, right? It's not just our own that we birth. And so now we have an even bigger task, I feel like, which is that Women's Nation. How do we hold that place of being the faith keeper for humanity in this moment? So I'm asking this Mother Earth to bless you and bestow you with that courage, with a powerful heart. You know what I was told: the greatest protection that ever could be is love, because when everyone's in love, then nobody needs protecting. so so I pray that you get bestowed that kind of agape love, I guess some people call it, right? It's the big love. It's not dependent on what comes your way, but but through Mother Earth, through divine source, through being in connection with the life all around us, nevertheless we're able to hold that place of love. And love can get fierce, and love can draw boundaries, and love can say no, and love can say, you must not, so let's not be confused when I say that. Anybody who's had a grandma can probably can know what that feels like. So so yeah, I just thank you for continuing that way of the ceremony. Human beings, my elders say, the human being is made for ceremony. And so I feel like this is a moment that's really important in the face of AI, in the face of all kinds of different things, to really claim hard that I am earthling, that I am human being, that I am an organism that is not defined by any mathematical equation or formula, that I am like this Mother Earth organism that is spontaneous, that is improvisational with every encounter, that is dynamic. And that's what makes me unique throughout the cosmos. That's what makes this Mother Earth unique throughout the cosmos. And my grandmother said, the grandmothers have said to me that, there's much in the universe that relies upon the human heart. We've been talked out of our feelings, but our feeling center and our feeling way is one of our primary contributions that we make to organism, to this incredible organism that is Earth, and that is this whole powerful, life community. And so I was told recently at Avebury, actually, the stone circles in what I call the aisles, because I'm not sure what to call them. They said, please recognize the preciousness of Earth. Please recognize yourself as Earth organism, a big part of the relational way and creativity and the unpredictability that she is this encounter. And so for the human being to add to the equation of life this feeling center, is such an incredibly precious, beautiful, inspiring to the whole cosmos contribution to who our Mother Earth is and who we are as her and with her, for her. So those are actually the words I wanted to close with anyway. So thank you, Maya, and my prayers will be with you, and best wishes in that endeavor there. And to the hosts here, I say thank you for hosting this whole conversation, not just our session. Thank you for hosting me, giving me an opportunity to speak these words that are coming and these experiences that are happening. And there's some big global ceremony I'm getting called to do, outrageous proposals from Spirit. And I'm going to say that I had a foundation say to me recently, if you don't understand that there is spiritual, she called it warfare, I would call it something else, going on, spiritual endeavors that have to be done now, then you're not really paying attention. And so even foundations are getting behind this broader spectrum of ways of knowing of how we move and what the possibilities are for addressing the things that are taking place around us. So I just ask for your prayers, if you would, to support the ceremonies that I'm called to host and hold and learn how to enact here on this Mother Earth at this time. And thank you.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you for everyone else who's been here and shared breath and presence. Yes, take care, everyone. If you want to continue the conversation, there is the festival open space. If you do want to go and hop over there and connect with anyone here, then you're really welcome to. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye. Hug on that.
Mm.